abandoned ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod. Jesus!
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our next after show for Andor episode 10, One Way Out. We've got Blake and Kirk joining us today in the Escape Pod to chat about that and break down everything that happened in this episode and a little bit of Star Wars news, latest stuff on the podcast, and a bit more. So, let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
One way out.
One way out. One way out. One way out.
I was finally right. First try.
There we go.
Escaped.
That's right. Yeah, first try.
I gotta play something here, which this is all I could think about when I was watching this episode. All right. Recognize it?
The Dark Knight Rises, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
Out of the Lazarus pit or whatever they call it, the well.
Yeah, rising from the pit scene. Yeah, when they're chanting off that
Downstairs.
thingy, that little
Downstairs. Exit. Basement. Back.
oh man, someone's got their robot going off. Someone's breaking in.
It's my security things. They always let the dog out. Carry on.
Oh, is that it?
My bad.
I thought it was another breach in the escape pod.
Yeah. Good thing we have this AI program in the escape pod to warn us when people go out the hatch.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, all I could think about was Dark Knight Rises and that whole sequence with Bruce Wayne trying to climb out of the pit, and I was like, yeah, this is very reminiscent, like lots of shots of like them climbing, like just like rising up, right? A lot of the prisoners kind of just like, yeah, it was just a cool kind of like parallel there, and I was like, yeah, that's good, good visual storytelling. Just like rising.
So it should have been titled Cassian Rises.
Cassian Rises.
Right? Prisoners Rises? I don't know. Rise of the Prisoners. There we go.
Yeah. Well, this is the Prison Break episode that we, as usual, actually, spoilers for, anyone who hasn't seen episode 10, but this is the Prison Break episode.
We just spoiled the whole episode. That's really all that happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess that's the podcast. We can call it here.
Yeah,
Thanks for everyone for joining.
Right.
They got out. That's it.
Yeah. That's right. All right, everyone. That was a good episode. Everyone have a good evening.
The people who could swim, they survived. The people who couldn't, they didn't.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Yeah. Kino drowns
That
everybody.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes
sense because.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna keep.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like off the bat, what were your just initial thoughts for like this episode, right? Because like finally it happened. Prison Break.
Yeah, at last. What's funny is through a lot of the Prison Break scene, I'm like, why are they not putting on the boots? They turn on the floor, they got to put on the boots, and they never did.
I was
a long
thinking
time with them like risking it.
I was thinking the same thing. Like they were arming themselves with the blaster rack, but none of them grabbed the pair of boots just in case any of those officers like turned on the floor. But
exactly,
I guess it wasn't really necessary until they cut the power. But I mean, like they could have put them on as a precaution before, as they were trying to get to the prison control room, right? So
that's the first thing I would have done if I was there. That I will say that one detail kind of broke my immersion just a little bit.
Yeah, and one other thing as well too. Like, I mean, great that they got out and all, but they didn't use that tool that all the implants the prison had in their necks. They didn't just activate them, I guess, to cause them to fall to the ground. Well, I wonder what happened with that.
Yeah, You got any thoughts on that, Blake?
So the thing on the neck, I thought it was just the floor.
Because I remember when they first went into the prison, or they arrived and they clicked the button. Like the guys, like if you step out of line, was that the floor? Or was that?
I
was that
the floor? That was an example of them
right.
turning the floor on, so they knew what was going on.
Yeah, I see.
And it was only level 1. It goes up to 3.
Yeah, wow. We didn't get to see what level 3 was.
I think that's probably when they step out at night and they die. That's my guess.
Yeah,
I didn't say it.
I think so.
Maybe
because,
that's only 2.
Well, someone kills himself.
3 is they just explode.
I think someone kills himself in like the last episode, right? Like they've had enough, so they step out onto the floor in the night, and they just they get fried.
That's right.
So I think that's what happens like on the max level, is that it's just so lethal that that's it, right?
Makes sense.
Andor finally convinces Kino that the Empire is afraid of the prisoners, so that they can they need to escape while they can, right? And Andor is telling the others like what they found out about the entire floor being fried, and Kino hits a breaking point. So like I was just curious, like what do you guys like think of this whole pattern with breaking points and all that stuff?
I think this episode was absolutely like masterfully crafted and really had the backbone of all the other episodes that came before it. So we had like, I think 2 prison episodes in total on Narkina 5, and that combination of how stressed we felt by feeling really claustrophobic and everything in there just made this whole escape and everything super satisfying. And I really feel I was listening to quite a lot of interviews with Andy Serkis about this episode in particular, and he was talking quite a bit about what it was actually like on the sets of these on the real sets of these prisons, and all the cast members felt like really like genuinely had a distaste and didn't want to be in there for that long. And that's why I think this was such an awesome episode, because again, we haven't had that much action. It was more just tense action throughout, but this was like a big payoff to all of that, and really felt like there was just like a massive feeling of a rebellion rising, I guess, afterwards. And it was honestly one of the most satisfying moments watching them all get out. Shortly lived by what happened right at the end, I guess. But it was great, and I think I think it was necessary for them to have all those other previous Prison Break, not Prison Break, just the prison episodes beforehand.
Right.
No, I agree with that. I do think it wouldn't have been as much of a delivery if they had cut short on just the ambiance of living in the prison and just the levels of stress, and the fact that these guys they were just so driven by the carrot of like they could see their number going down every day. Eventually, they're gonna get out until they find out it's all a lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this break, almost like the prison break in itself, didn't really remind me of a prison break. It almost reminded me of like a zombie apocalypse, but all the prisoners were like zombies, kind of trying to run up the walls and everything. And it was great. It was like I was cheering for the zombies in this case.
Yeah, with all the red lights, the dim environments, and it's it was all very very apocalypse kind of feeling for sure.
Man, I gotta say, it's just a massive oversight having such a few amount of guards.
Yeah.
But I guess, budget cuts. The Empire's probably, they're not known for overspending where they need to. They got to save money to build 2 Death Stars, right? So they got to save cash where they can.
Yeah, totally.
I guess it's a great example of like the overconfidence of the Empire as well. So like they had all the tech in the facilities, and I'm looking and watching these episodes being like, these guys can't escape. But it just took like a little bit of, ingenuity with the floor and the water, and then they were good to go.
Yeah. I'm surprised they even knew that would work, because I was trying to figure out why they were going to break that water pipe in the first place. So I guess it's an electrical current, but wouldn't that just make it worse?
Yeah, they did that beforehand. Didn't they start trying to crack open that pipe a couple episodes beforehand? I think
they did.
Yeah, because what I noticed, they just as the floor got turned on, most of the people jumped up onto the tables. The water sparked, and then some of the prisoners looked like they got fried because of the water, but then others,
that's what it looked like. Yeah,
others it kind of passed. I guess. Yeah,
I guess it shorted it out and then fried the system.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that makes sense to me. But the fact they were able to figure that out, I don't think they ever mentioned that as the plan. So I will admit, leading up to this, because we were seeing Cassian working on cutting the pipe, and then it looked like they were all kind of taking turns working on it. But for a long time, I didn't really know what they were doing, like what the plan was.
Yeah.
Once it's open, then what? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I had the feeling as well. It's like, how did they even come up with the idea that this is going to work by frying the floor tech? Because, if you have an underwater prison, you'd expect a lot of things to be waterproof, right? Like water resistant.
True.
I mean, I just thought it was
point.
Yeah, it's just like kind of dummy proof. Like, I mean, if you're building an underwater base of any kind, it's like there's a good chance that this whole facility is going to have a resistance to water. And we've seen it in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show as well. When one of the windows cracks open, the blast doors just shut like automatically, right? And it's like that's the way that the building responds. And I was just a little surprised that the water actually had any kind of impact on the building's structure or tech at all.
Was it underwater though? Because I showed the aerial shots with all the wide angles and stuff with all the bridges, and they were above water. The whole thing was a giant water dam, right?
It's like if you were to take like a
hydropower.
If you were to take a cup and like dip it in a bathtub, right? Like the inside is dry, but it's surrounded by water, right? And then on the surface, that's where the entry point is. So it's like a cave that they've.
I don't even think it's that. Like I think the whole thing sticks out of the water like a building, and then there's several, like the whole facility, at least the layer we were on, was above water, but the building itself at some level would be submerged.
Yeah, like the lower levels and stuff, I think are below sea level. Like that's just my suspicion.
I think they said there were 5 levels in total. Yeah. I can't remember, but there was definitely some parts that were below water. But obviously, like as they were jumping out of the of the facility, there was definitely like a drop. So there was definitely parts of the facility that were above water. That's for sure. I mean, it would have been pretty funny if Andor cut that pipe and there was no water in there. It was like a wires and everything.
Oh no!
It's like that's the gas tube instead.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's like hot plasma in there. They all just get fried.
Yeah.
Burned up. Oh no, it was the fuel line.
Oh man. So we're left with the feeling in this episode that we're just like sick of this place, right? And the characters are clearly sick of this place as well, seeing as like they get to the point of like, okay, we're done here, we're getting out whether we die or not, this is happening kind of thing, which is really cool. Marva's place is being watched by the ISB and by Cinta. It was such a brief part of this episode that I didn't know really what to put, because I guess, like, in my opinion, they could have just cut that whole scene and not had it in this episode at all, and that would have been fine. Like, I think it's fine to just go back to those characters later, but they made an effort to put a scene in this episode where Cinta, one of the rebels from that heist, and an ISB officer are both watching Marva's house, right? There's also a scene in which there's a doctor who is brought to the aid of Marva by somebody else claiming that she's not taking her meds. So I don't know if we're supposed to get this little insight into kind of what her health is like right now. Maybe Andor's not going to see her again. Like maybe by the time he gets back to Ferrix, she's going to be dead, right? So maybe that's what that was supposed to be all about. I don't know, but Blake, I guess, do you have any suspicions about like what was going on there?
Yeah, maybe they're doing that. I could also see them setting up something happens and he goes back. He's forced to go back there, even though he's likely to get caught. And then he's gonna like just catch her, and she's gonna be like, "You have to fight for the rebellion," and then she dies. And then he's like, "Oh, I have to fight for the rebellion," and like that's how they get into Rogue One. Like there's like time jumps.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Because at this point, he has worked with the rebellion, like for the heist, but you could tell he has no plan to go back. And him going to prison, he obviously hates the Empire more, but I can't see that being enough to push him to think the rebellion is the right way to go about it. So I think, yeah, we've got 2 episodes left, so there's going to be, it's probably going to be a 3-episode arc, and they're going to force us to wait till the next season for the 3rd one. I think that's what they're going to do. But I think he's going to have to go back to help her for some reason, and it's going to involve the rebels because we know that she is a rebel, and she is going to die, and that's going to be how he joins the rebellion. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, you think that's going to be his breaking point for joining the rebellion, I guess, right?
I think so, because we know that's his weak point, right? Is her, because that's really his only family. And he is pretty disattached to everything else. Like that's really his only connection to anyone or anything in the galaxy at this point.
Yeah.
Other than that, he just wanted money, right? So
right. Yeah. So Kirk, we meet Davo finally, and he suggests a prearranged marriage between Mon Mothma's daughter and his son. Again, going back to the breaking points, what's she gonna do on behalf of the rebellion, right? And do you have any thoughts on like that whole conversation that took place, that whole like scene?
Yeah, I think this was a wonderful scene. Like, it did a few things for me. Like, number one, it explained like why Mon Mothma is so not really interested in her husband. At least this is the first time I picked up on that. Obviously, being in arranged marriage and their culture or religion was a big reason to why there's such a really weird relationship between the two of them. And it also obviously ties in like why the daughter is so important in the show. Up until this point, I think the daughter was really just kind of been a bit of a catalyst, I guess, for why the father and Mon Mothma don't really get along that well. But it's great, awesome writing. I feel like they've put her in as a big moving forward story point. And I can't remember what the gangster was called or what that guy was called. I think you just said it there.
Yeah, his first name's Davo. Yeah. Yeah,
Davo. Yeah. I think he's absolutely right. I think I think she's going to make the decision to do something with the daughter or whatever. I feel like she doesn't want to do that, but I think she's at least considering it for sure. And whether or not we'll see what she does in this season, I'm not too sure. But I think it was just really good that they were able to create or bring in this character Davo and have it reference or at least give a bit more weight to Mon Mothma's family. And it just shows that she's putting more and more on the line and going out of her comfort zone in order to set up this charity, I guess, in the end. So yeah, like I think it adds another a great kind of layer to the story, as well as obviously what was happening at the prison break. And yeah, just I agree with what Blake was saying before in terms of all that. I just don't feel like that scene cutting to her, being sick was as necessary as this whole sequence inside her house.
Yeah. I thought it was such a good, well written scene, and It's a great point to bring up for sure that her cold marriage with her husband is kind of probably a result of the prearranged stuff. And, you can kind of clearly see on her face, like she doesn't really wish that for her daughter at all. But, she is at a loss of what to do, right? Like she needs this money to really kind of keep the rebellion going. Is her daughter's happiness kind of like the price to pay, I guess, for, what she needs to do?
Tense.
Right? Yeah.
Like it was so tense. And like, especially obviously they're super rich and wealthy and they live a lot better life than a lot of other people do in the galaxy. But she even said like everything in her house is like Empire issued and she can't change anything. Like I would have thought it was completely her like decor and everything. And I'm no interior designer, so I don't really care about this. Mm-hmm. But I think that quick line that they put in there with that conversation was again more illustrative that like the Empire has control from everything from down to like the poor areas of society all the way up to the top, or at least the politicians, albeit. So I think that she will give up something. Technically, the guy did just say that they only needed to do an introduction, so nothing really needs to happen. But I feel like that's not exactly what would end up happening.
Yeah.
It seemed weird to me that, like, obviously we're from a culture without arranged marriages, but she grew up with this culture of arranged marriages, and that she isn't even willing to see him out to like fulfill the rebellion. To me, like get money to them seems like, I don't know. It seems like that shouldn't be that big of a deal. They're making out to be a bigger deal than it is from her cultural perspective. I guess I would explain it as. And I was watching it just a little while ago here, and my brother-in-law, because we started talking about this, and he said, like why wouldn't she do it? Like the rebellion is this huge thing, and like could save millions of lives and could take down this evil empire that's just getting power. Like they're just gripping power tighter and tighter, and she's just not willing to just have her kid get married. Like, it seems like it's such a minute trade,
I think like the biggest kind of the biggest thing for her is like she looks at this guy and despises him, right? Like
he's a thug.
Yeah, the mention of him in the last episode, she was like, she was just kind of gobsmacked that his name kind of comes up as an answer to her problems, right? So for her to kind of take her own daughter and just marry her off to this guy's son, I guess, is a real doozy, right? And yeah, it's just like, I thought it was really funny that that's just kind of who this guy is. He's like, I've got no interest in money. Like, I just want my kid to be set up with someone who's like established and like comes from a good home and like a good family. Clearly he's got respect for Mon Mothma. Yeah, marry up, exactly. Yeah, right? Clearly he respects Mon Mothma a lot for him to actually even suggest this over money.
I don't even know if it's that. I think it's more than his, like, think of royalty at like medieval ages and everything, right? Like, you would use your kids as bartering chips, and you have them marry other, like, princesses, queens, kings, whatever, and that would give you political power. And I think that's what he's after here.
Yeah, very well could be, for sure. Could be trying to get into the political game and have a senator under his thumb.
Exactly. So then he'll have some leverage there. I mean, if he is underhanded like Mon Mothma has claimed, and he does dodgy things, like we already know that's why they reached out to him in the first place. He's not too worried about following the rules. Then he's probably going to be trying to persuade some political opinion for maybe some unsavory people.
Right. We got an Easter egg in this episode in Luthen's shop. Once again, we have Padme's headpiece showing up, which is kind of interesting. It was the headpiece that she wore in, I think it was Attack of the Clones. And it's like that golden kind of thing that she wears. It's like a hat or whatever. It's like a disc on the head. So I'm pretty sure that was hers. But otherwise, if not, it looked very similar. But I'm pretty sure that was an Easter egg. So that was kind of
maybe it's just Naboobian.
Yeah, exactly, a Naboobian. And when here's another thing. When Andor and Kino get to prison control, they find this weasel kind of guy behind the big voice mic PA system, and all I could think of was, the Wizards of Oz, right? The Wizard of Oz, just this little guy behind, the big kind of booming
pulling
voice,
the strings
right?
behind the curtain.
Yeah. So, and we've seen that before as well in a Clone Wars arc as well, which is kind of funny. But Kino instructs, the prisoners to kind of get out of their cell, help everyone out. Andor kind of pushes him to give this kind of speech, right? And I think it's like, I don't know what it is about Kino. I really like Kino's character. I love Andy Serkis. I like this character a lot because,
him too.
Yeah, they're really taking him in a direction that would insinuate that this is the kind of guy that would clearly join the rebellion now that he's been through what he's been through. He's got good reason for fighting back, right? And it would suck to just kind of get an episode in which he's confirmed to have just drowned after jumping off the prison thing. That would really suck.
Could you imagine?
I really hope they don't do that. I think we'll either see him in the prison again doing something, or we'll see him in a floaties or something, and he's going to be swimming away. I don't know, but
I could see it. Well, we don't see him again. And then for this season, like maybe the end of next season or something, they cross paths and they find out he like couldn't swim, and then they like captured him, and then he managed to escape later, and like updates Cassian like what's going on, and like maybe he'll be like missing an eye, and like they tortured him and stuff afterwards. I could totally see something like that, and then it just like hardened his resolve.
I
think we'll see him next season. I honestly feel like, I don't want to say it, but I feel like we may not see him again until another season or something. I would prefer to see him sooner, but who knows? It kind of just felt like that was it, and then Andor kind of ran off. He didn't even go back for him or anything.
He got pushed off from the crowd.
Yeah, he got pushed off, but like when he was on the beach, like it didn't seem like he waited there and like shouted up at him, or they didn't do like that type of scene. So like waiting for him to come back down or anything.
All that, and it just cut to him like running away. Right? They're like, you see helicopters in the background. They're trying to find everyone.
That's right. So I feel like he's still in the prison and nothing really happened, which is
I think so too.
But yeah, Kino, that's the Andy Serkis's character's name, right? He really reminded me of Caesar, like from Planet of the Apes, and especially the
There's a
last
reason
one.
for that.
I mean, it is his character, but especially when he went onto the mics and like they'll try to get all the apes out of the prison.
Yeah,
obviously it's not the same thing, but like
He's like, I've done this before.
It's pretty much this.
Yeah,
pretty funny.
it's honestly the same thing, because like when he's a Caesar, he's also breaking apes out of the prison, right? So like,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
I thought it was gonna be like one way out, apes together, strong.
Apes together, strong. Yeah.
Man, that explains so much, because when they were running the final like stretch there to get to where the water was at, he kept like running on his knuckles. I was trying to figure out why.
I'm pretty sure I saw a flying banana somewhere.
Yeah, I think I might have saw that too.
Somewhere in the multiverse.
Yeah, somewhere
There
out
we
there.
go. That's got to be it.
In this episode, Luthen feels way darker than he ever has before. He's kind of presented as a bit of an antagonist character when he has to meet Lonnie, who is in this episode we find out Lonnie is actually also a rebel who's been working 6 years in behind the ISB curtain as a spy for Luthen's network, and he's had to sacrifice time and risk his own life. He's got a family. So he comes to Luthen and he's kind of just giving every reason for him not to be part of it anymore. Just saying that this is it. I'm giving you as much as I can and I'm going to leave. And, Luthen kind of just comes back at him with like every single reason in the book that he's actually sacrificed more than anyone else. And, and he basically, much like Saw, we see he's kind of becoming an extremist, right? And he knows that he's damned for what he does. Yeah, he says it. And, no matter how much Lonnie unburdens himself to Luthen, who tells him that he thinks of constantly, right? Luthen thinks of Lonnie clearly as an asset, not a friend. And it's important to kind of like see the difference of of how Luthen treats and thinks of all the people that he works with for this rebel network over their well-being and safety and this and that. Obviously something that Mon Mothma, quite the opposite, when she's talking to her cousin, she's like very concerned about her. Well, I mean, it is her cousin, but at the same time, it's like there's a bit of a difference there. So, Kirk, maybe you got some thoughts about this whole sequence. We can start with you. If you got any thoughts on this whole Luthen, Lonnie conversation that took place.
Yeah, I think, again, like Luthen's dialogue, I think that was one of the best monologues out of like the whole show, and even in
his
in
acting
Star Wars,
was phenomenal there.
It was incredible, and I actually had to watch it twice just because when I watched it the first time, there was a lot of kind of complex, I guess, motifs, and he wasn't explicitly saying what he had sacrificed until I kind of watched it again and really understood it. And I think it was honestly a more well put together, I guess, not speech about how the Empire and this rebellion, like he said this quote, like, I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy against them. And that was like a really like a much more, I guess, sophisticated way of saying of, again, I keep going back to DJ's point in The Last Jedi, like, it goes good guys, bad guys. Like it's, and the whole speech was all filled with that. And, I really think it was a great way of just, if you're going to show someone like one scene in the show and they asked, how's Star Wars Andor different and more, I guess, adult versus any other kind of Star Wars show? Like this is probably the scene that I would show. On first viewing, it doesn't make any sense because you have to watch all the other episodes, of course.
Right.
But I think, it really deepens Luthen's character. I really feel we'll see him in the next 2 episodes. Not too sure what will happen, but I think this is definitely the scene that really kind of cemented my belief in Luthen being a really key part of this rebellion rising, and obviously highlighting that the rebellion is not really all fairy tales and hugs and kittens and stuff.
Yeah, some great key points. Yeah. Blake, what about you? What were your thoughts when you heard this monologue?
I as well didn't catch everything the first time. However, when he first was asked it, my first thoughts were everything. And then he said about 40 words and then said finally everything. So I did get that part.
Nice.
It was interesting him kind of like getting into more detail. And he the monologue there, as Kirk was saying, was phenomenal. Like I was just, even though I didn't catch everything he said, I was really drawn into the acting of the scene. And you could kind of tell that he was trying to make it look like he was actually thinking about it in the moment. And I think that really came across because he kind of went into, it was almost a bit of a ramble monologue of him like mentally going through all the things that he's done. And then finally coming to the conclusion, like, I've sacrificed everything. So like, who are you to try to leave now? And this is a bit of a tangent, but at the beginning, the conversation between the ISB guy and him, I almost felt like he was talking to his son. Was that just me? I thought they were going to reveal that was his son.
Lonnie?
Yeah, I did kind of. Yeah. I felt there was some type of emotional connection there. Like there was at least. Also, I thought Lani was that guy in Rogue One that ran up to the Mon Mothma with the mustache and everything, but it definitely was not him. But yeah, I kind of felt that. I feel like there was some type of friendship or connection between the two of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought they were going to reveal, and they looked like the actors, both of them looked a little bit similar. I would say that they had like similar noses, for example.
That would be an interesting surprise, that twist, like later in the show to reveal. Yeah.
If like his son like became an ISB agent, or like whether it was intentional to like have someone on the inside or not. I thought, that'd be a cool twist.
Yeah.
But they didn't officially say that, but they didn't say it wasn't either. So
yeah, I
don't know.
No, I'm definitely with you in the sense that the intensity of the scene, I think, was more grabbing than anything else. You just kind of get absorbed into the performance. This guy really spewing off like, I've delivered everything I can, sacrificed as much as I can for this rebellion. And what really got me, though, out of everything he kind of said was how he almost kind of insinuated that he knows how he's going to go out, right? Like he just kind of says like, I'm damned for what I do. And I just thought to myself, I think, yeah, like Saw feels probably the same way. Like Saw is one of those guys that clearly he's in this fight until he's dead kind of thing, right?
Oh man.
And
there's a lot of similarities between the two. And
yeah.
I was going to mention, and I kind of forgot there, and maybe this is what you're getting at, but like the similarities between them are so close that I could actually see him becoming similar of an extremist as Saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
And so then that's why we don't see him in the rebellion later. Is just like Saw, he either gets killed or is cut out.
Yeah, and
Luthen did meet up with Saul, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
Yes,
and
last
they
episode.
seem to they know each other for sure. They don't seem to really get along quite well, but yeah, they're. It's funny how similar they are because yeah, when we see Saw in Rogue One, he says something along the lines of, like, "Go, Jin, I will run no longer." And
I think everyone's just fed up. Everyone's just done with this rebellion. It's
Yeah.
like, this was a good idea at the start, but now I'm just sick of it.
He lets that big, huge Jeddah kind of explosion just wipe him out, right? He's just tired of running. He's like, you know what? This is it. This is it for me. I've given everything I can possibly give. I can't breathe properly anymore. Like he has done so much in the name of rebellion that this fight's just it's somebody else's now, right? And it's like him kind of metaphorically passing the torch to Jin to just keep it going, right? He's like, save the rebellion, save the dream. So like he dies as a believer, and I think that Luthen is kind of like the same guy. Like he's just gonna go until he can't anymore, and that's Luthen's story, right? And so it's him kind of reflecting on his life in the last 15 years, really kind of doing what he can to ensure that this rebellion is established. And it's funny because like I never really before this show, I mean Luthen didn't exist or didn't come up in any other stories, and I always thought that it just kind of formulated beneath Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and the network that they'd set up. I didn't realize that there was going to be a third party person like Luthen who, he also very much involved, but kind of even more so it's like on the military front, really kind of planning these extra vicious moves against the Empire, which really isn't Mon Mothma or Bail Organa's thing, right? And it takes someone with a set of dirty hands to really kind of get some of this stuff done that maybe other people higher up in the rebellion isn't prepared to do. And it goes back to what Andor says about in their last stand before they all die on Scarif. Is we've all done terrible things in the name of the rebellion. They all have some kind of guilt, even though they've done it for the general overall sense of doing good. They've done it and still kind of have some remorse as to who they've had to kill point blank or whatever, right?
They carry that baggage of what they've had to do for the greater good.
Yeah, it's a weight, right? It's a weight. And I think in this moment with Luthen, like we see this weight just being like, it's like his coworker, Lonnie kind of dumps his massive potato sack on the ground. He says, I'm finished. And then here comes Luthen. He's like, yeah, well, I got a truckload of that behind me, right? And I think it was just kind of like an interesting, like, oh, you think you want out? Like, I can't get out, right? And he kind of just ends off with saying, like, you're stuck, Lonnie. Like, you're not going anywhere. So which made him kind of look a little bit more like a villain in a way because, he doesn't want Lonnie to leave. He needs that connection. He needs him in the ISB. And he knows that if Lonnie tries to leave...
For multiple reasons. Yeah. He's an incredibly valuable asset. So, of course, he's going to do everything he can to keep him. But at the same time, he's also a loose end. So, can't let him out for that reason either.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if Lonnie leaves, Luthen's got to kill him. Probably does the same thing that Andor does to that poor chap in the Ring of Caffeine.
Andor's done quite a bit of that. Like he killed the person or the two prison guards at the start of the at the start of the show. Like he killed the. I'm forgetting of all of those names because there's so many characters in the show. But obviously, once they finished the heist and he had to kill the other guy in cold blood because he wanted to just make off with the money, there was him. But then who killed that prison guard when they were like inside of the Narkina 5, where one of them's like, "Oh yeah, what are you gonna do?" And then I think either Andor or Kino just turn around and shoot the other prison guard, like straight out of cold blood. So like that's really an ongoing theme again.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And at the base of it all is really just this constant kind of, I'm doing this for the rebellion because I'm a rebel and, you know, I'm I've got a greater cause behind this and I had to kill that person because I can't get caught or
makes
whatever.
it easy to justify it, right?
Yeah, it's the easy way out, right? Yeah. So, you know, and you know, truth be told, it's something that a lot of obviously a lot of Jedi probably wouldn't do, but it's something that Anakin might do. Like I could totally see him killing people, like just straight up like that. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. It's interesting to see kind of the effects that this has left on like someone like Lonnie, who's been doing it for 6 years. Like it weighs hard, right? So that's something that this show has provided, which we don't really get to see with all the sparkly kind of victories that we get in the original trilogy when they just blow up the Death Star and do all these crazy things, right? It's like, oh yeah, yeah. It's like, no, there's some real darkness. Yeah, it's like, no, there's some real darkness at the root of all of this, and you know, it's cool to kind of see that in this show. Before we wrap it up here, Andor gets away. He gets beached with somebody else. I don't know who he's with. It was a bit too dark to see, but any speculation for what's going to happen next?
Well, I guess I'm wondering if they're going to start off with him trying to get off of that planet. I do think that there's going to be a 3-episode arc, and the final episode is going to be next season. So they're going to leave us with a cliffhanger. I just think that's inevitable.
Have they confirmed the next season?
I think so.
Yeah, they have.
I think Josh and I talked about that.
Yeah, season 2 is confirmed to have to take place after a time jump of 2 years or something, and and it's going to be in kind of closer to that Rogue One time frame, I guess. You know, might actually even link up with that movie. I would also imagine that K2SO will probably be in season 2. I think that might be like a realistic thing. Yeah.
That'd be cool. Get Alan Tudyk involved.
Yeah,
I always liked him.
Yeah.
I think that, as I was saying earlier, we're going to see him have to go back and save his stepmom, but it'll be too late. And whatever happens is going to cause him to join the rebellion. And then I think season 2 is going to be about him learning to live life as a rebel and maybe do things that he never thought he would have to do. And that's going to lead into where we see him in Rogue One. That's my guess.
Right.
My wise prediction is that he'll go back to his planet to see his mum, but he'll just be out of time because his mum's been sold as a slave to other people, and then he's going to go kill a bunch of sand people. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong
different episode 2.
Different episode 2.
Yeah, no, it's more likely she'll be bought from being a slave and then be married to a guy who's in a hover chair.
like some real Back to the Future type stuff.
That's right. And the guy who sold her will have previously known him, but now he'll have a hat, so it's a different guy.
Oh yes.
We have some brief other kind of news just to kind of hit real quick. Is a tweet from James Mangold, who is the director of Indy 5. There will be a first promotional material releasing within the next 30 days. And I thought that was just worth sharing on the show because it's another Lucasfilm production. I know everyone's kind of stoked to see what Indy 5 is going to look like, and it appears we'll get a first glimpse of that within the next month. So, yeah, super excited. That being said, with that in mind, this past episode of Andor, the next one around the corner, any last minute things you guys want to say?
I hope we see some more Senate action. I know we're not going to get, I don't know, but I feel like it'd be nice just to get at least one major character, at least reflecting on everything that's happened. But I really think that Andor and Luthen will meet up and there'll be one other type of at least major action sequence. Obviously, it's kind of very broad, but knowing that there's a season 2, I think a lot of the juicy stuff that connects to Rogue One will probably wait till that. So just like after they broke out of I think they did the Aldani, the heist, I feel like just right now, I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, like who predicted that Andor was going to spend 3 episodes in a prison?
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, exactly right. I know I definitely didn't see that coming. How cool would it be if season 1 ends with Mon Mothma being outed as being connected to the rebels? Maybe because she won't have her daughter marry or court the banker's kid. He'll like set it up where she's like
that would be spicy,
and then she's forced to go on the lam, and that's how she's forced to leave the Senate.
That would be a pretty doozy of a cliffhanger. She gets outed and then boom, cut to black. That would be crazy.
Palpatine would be very unhappy if she left him being the Senate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Real quick, Blake, why should people join the Star Wars Escape Pod Discord?
Because we have lots of fun chats, and in there, we're constantly talking about our Star Wars Legos, and we always like to hear great stories about our favorite Star Wars game character, Dash Rendar. This is always a hot topic, and if you say anything about Dash Rendar in there, I guarantee you our friend Phil will reply.
Yeah, he will reply. He's been on the show. He will reply, and he will be your friend for life. Hashtag Dash Rendar.
I think it'd be a lot of fun if we made that a challenge for this week. Everyone should get in there and comment something about Dash Rendar. If you feel you're tired of hearing about him, say that. Say why you dislike him. Say why he's the best. Say why you think that he should be Han Solo, or maybe why the Solo movie should have been about him. Get in there and chat, and I'm sure Phil will have a comment to reply.
Yeah, great points to make. Yeah, if you're not familiar with Discord, we've made it pretty simple and easy to use. So it's free to sign up, and the link is in every single podcast episode in the description. So make sure you check it out and join Star Wars Escape Pod. Join us on the Discord server. So, all right, thanks for joining the podcast. Blake, Kirk, we will see you in the next one.
We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right, a big thank you to our listeners for tuning in to Star Wars Escape Pod. Big thank you to Kirk. Big thank you to Blake, our co-host. And thank you for tuning in wherever you are, in the car, on the walk with the dog. Maybe you're going to Luthen's to shop for some exclusive goods, who knows what. Maybe you're listening to us right now as you mosey around Galaxy's Edge. That would be absolutely amazing if any of you are listening to Star Wars Escape Pod in Star Wars land of all places. Amazing. Upcoming Star Wars content is, we only got like 2 episodes left of Andor, and then we'll be going back to some What Happened episodes on Star Wars Escape Pod. So make sure you tune in for those, catching you up on character arcs across the Star Wars saga. Don't forget to tune into those Tales of the Jedi arcs as well that we hit recently. And join us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube with SW Escape Podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, which is currently uploading every previous episode of the podcast. You can now reach us on YouTube. Drop a comment in the comments. We would love to get those comments going. Look for those snipped highlights in the Discord. Join the Discord server. Send us an email and a voicemail. And may the Force be with you. We'll see you in the next one on Star Wars Escape Pod.